Freestanding.
We're all here. Let the record reflect that we have reconvened with all members present. Please rise for the pledge, and I ask you to remain standing after the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing. I want to remember a few Madisonians we've lost over the last few weeks. Jane Wennis, a longtime Madison resident, died on December 7th. She just recently celebrated her 100th birthday. I think her whole life in Madison, since 1951, I believe, was on Pine Avenue. She was kind of known as the matriarch of Pine. She worked over half a century at Fairleigh Dickinson. She loved Madison and did her part to give back, heavily involved in organizations such as the Thursday Morning Club, American Association of University Women, and the Library Trustees. Her favorite charity was the Madison Eagle Christmas Fund. Also, Filomena Prudente, lifelong Madison resident, died on November 30th. She was 99, would have been 100 in just a few weeks. Filomena's love of cooking and caring for others made her job cooking for the children in Madison Public Schools a natural career for her. She also cooked at Drew University for many years. Carmelo Pico, 89, lifelong resident of Madison, died on November 24th. She was bookkeeper for State Electronics at East Hanover and a member of St. Vincent Martyr Church. Marion Frost, longtime Madison resident, died November 23rd. She was 97. Born November 8th, 1924, and in a common theme from our last meeting, she met her future husband Jack at a roller rink. They were married in Las Vegas and eventually settled in Madison. She was active with the St. Vincent Martyr Church and a longtime volunteer with Madison Volunteer Ambulance Corps. And Teresa T.D. Glander, 45-year resident of Madison, died on December 11th. She was 94. Born in 1927 in Littleton, New Hampshire. She raised her 4 children initially in Short Hills and then moved to Madison. So let's take a moment to remember Jane Wennis, Filomena Prudente, Carmelo Pico, Marion Frost, and T.D. Glander, and let us pass our thoughts on to the families and friends they leave behind. Thank you. Do the executive minutes in one motion, so motion for executive minutes of October 25th, 2021, November 8th, 2021, and November 22nd, 2021.
So moved, Mayor.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
A motion for the regular minutes of October 25th, 2021.
So
moved.
Second.
Any discussion, corrections? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, a motion for the regular minutes of November 8th, 2021.
So moved.
Second.
Any corrections or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
And then the regular minutes of November 22nd, 2021.
So moved.
Second.
Any corrections or changes? All in favor?
Aye.
Welcome all. We had a 5 Monday November, so an extra week in between meetings, and with Thanksgiving in there, it seems like it's been much longer than just three weeks in between meetings. This is our last regular meeting of the year, but more importantly and sadly, this is Ostrey's last regular meeting for this round. So, but we'll be hearing more about Ostrey's service at our reorganization meeting, but you know, it just won't be the same as we go into the new year. A lot of things were going on last 3 weeks, and certainly Thanksgiving weekend was an amazing time. The parade was incredible, to put it in a word. More groups were marching than ever before, and it sure looked like a regular crowd as Maureen, John, and I marched. Carmen Toto Jr. would have been very proud of how his family, supported by an army of volunteers, stepped up and delivered a great event, topped off with the lighting of the Christmas tree from the Toto's backyard. WCBS 2 was in town to share the story. I got interviewed during the parade, and I was cut so they could share the stories from the children, which I think was far better. They had far better things to say than I did. I think the one I loved was the one young girl who said, Madison's parade is so special because we have the real Santa Claus. CBS then returned the next day for Small Business Saturday. Weatherman John Elliott highlighted a few of our great small businesses, including the Madison Pet Shop, Prima, and Tons of Toys. And when I went to visit them later in the week, they actually said people saw that in the morning and then came to Madison that afternoon because the highlight of the stores. And then that Sunday was the menorah lighting, celebrating the first night of Hanukkah. And that was the 28th, and Maureen, thank you for covering for me. Council President Maureen Byrne covered for me as, ironically, I was unable to get away from the Christmas tree lot to get to the menorah lighting. But they also reported what they thought was a record crowd. So people really feeling a need for this holiday season. And a reminder that our reorganization meeting is scheduled for Monday, January 3rd at 7 p.m. As I mentioned before, we'll be thanking Ostry for her service on the council, giving the oath of office for the second time to Deb Cohen and to Eric Range for the first time. And we'll also be recognizing any longtime volunteers who may be stepping down off committees and confirming appointments to various boards and committees. So please mark your calendars. And lastly, the employee for the month of December, Sandy Emmerich, Personnel Director, has been selected as employee for the month. She's been efficient, compassionate, and professional while handling the many COVID-related personnel issues that arose in the borough. She has been quick to adapt to the challenges and continue to occur from the pandemic. She's doing an amazing job, so please congratulate her on being Employee of the Month. And now let's move on to reports from committees. Public Safety, Council President Byrne.
Thank you, Mayor. From the Police Department, the Madison Police Department is seeking school crossing guards. Interested candidates should visit rosenet.org for more information or to apply for the position. The Madison Police Department would like to remind all residents who are traveling and will be away for this holiday season that they can register home on the vacation list, which is found on the Borough website, www.rosenet.org. This month, all sworn officers and auxiliary officers completed our yearly use of force de-escalation training consistent with New Jersey Attorney General's Directive 2020-13. This online training consisted of 8 separate modules which put an emphasis on de-escalation tactics and methods. The police department enjoyed taking part in the yearly tradition that is the Madison Christmas Parade on November 26th. The safety and security of everyone present was our utmost priority. Some of the security parameters were visible and some were not apparent. They'd like to take this time to thank our partners in the Madison Christmas Committee, the Toto family, Madison DPW, Madison Water and Light, the mayor and council surrounding public safety agencies that assisted, Michael Pellissier and Captain Joe Longo, who supervised the security plan. The Madison Police Department would also like to thank the Morris County Sheriff's Office for providing additional security at the annual Madison menorah lighting at the Madison train station. And finally, First Baptist Church of Madison is teaming up with Zufel Medical and the Madison Police Department to provide free COVID-19 booster shots on Friday, December 17th, between the hours of 10 and 2 at the Public Safety Building. From the Fire Department, during the month of November, the Fire Department responded to 21 general alarms, 15 still alarms, 18 investigations, 29 EMS calls, for a total of 83 responses in November. 2 department drills were held, and 40 fire prevention inspections and 21 smoke CO resales inspections were conducted. On Tuesday evening, December 7th at approximately 8 p.m., Engine 2 with 5 firefighters along with other fire departments responded to Chatham Borough for a commercial structure fire at 10 Bonnell Street. There were no injuries and units were on scene for approximately 4 hours. 2 of our newest volunteer firefighters, Randy Vargas and Patrick Colligan, have successfully completed their 198 hours of Firefighter 1 training and passed the New Jersey Division of Fire Safety's required state exam. And finally, 4 of our volunteer firefighters, Dean Pappas, Mike Kitsopolis, Jack Downs, and Luke McCory, have all successfully completed their 96 hours of firefighting 2 training and passed the New Jersey Division of Fire Safety required state exam. Congratulations to all 6 of our dedicated volunteers, and thank you for your commitment to Madison. That's all.
Thank you. And with her final report on Finance and Borough Clerk,
Bob,
Ms. Bailey. Sorry.
let me just say that, many years ago, I did it for the last time.
I know.
Now I'm still sitting here.
Yes.
You never know what will happen.
I did qualify that earlier. I did say for this round.
For this round, yeah, for this round. You never know. Anyway, the Morris County Navigating Hope Van will be in Madison on 2 occasions in January, providing resources and assistance in applying to SNAP, Medicaid, General Assistance, TANF, Utility and Housing Assistance. The first visit is January 11th, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. On Lincoln Place. The second visit will be January 24th, 3 to 6 p.m. at the Madison Library parking lot, and there will be information on Rosenet. And from the tax collector's office, they have collected over 98% of the annual tax levy, with fewer than 120 accounts still owing 2021 property taxes. That's really good to hear, especially in these COVID times. Our residents are able to pay their taxes. So this is in line with prior year's collections. Property owners are reminded that any account with a delinquency of $10,000 or more by year end will be charged an additional 6% penalty. The tax office is open and available to help residents with any questions from 8 to 4:30, Monday through Friday. From the Finance Department, later this evening, we're going to have 2 2022 budget presentations. The Chief Financial Officer, Jim Burnett, will report on the Open Space Trust Fund as well as the 5-year capital plan. And our Borough Engineer, Bob Vogel, will also be available for capital-related questions. And both documents are on the Rosenet on the annual budget process page. The pandemic and reduced revenues are forcing us to reduce the municipally funded capital projects, and you'll see that tonight. But keep in mind that we will have significant projects being funded by state and federal dollars, including the library renovation, the Borough Emergency Services Radio Project, and the MRC Trail. And tonight, we will briefly discuss the council budget hearing schedule, and we can't say this enough. January 10th, we're going to have the road program discussion and introduction of funding ordinances. January 24th, Electric and Public Works Department head presentations, utilities, budget, and fund balance discussion. And we're going to have a hearing on the road program funding ordinances. On February 14th, initial budget discussion and municipal surplus discussion. February 28th, department head presentations. March 14th, second discussion on the draft budget, strategic planning guidelines, and authorization to draft the official state budget document. Then on March 28th will be the official state budget introduction, and April 25th, the budget adoption. And this year, the state will be reviewing our budget, and there's no exemption. And this happens once every 3 years. So the State of New Jersey Division of Local Government Services has to review and approve the budget document before it is introduced. So that might slow things down. This is my last council meeting for now. And I want to say that I really am proud of the budget process we have in place because it's very transparent, because we receive a lot of important information and financial schedules, and finally, there are many opportunities for residents to comment. And I would like the council to continue this process, especially the strategic planning guidelines that were championed by Ben Wolkowitz. Those are really important, and these guidelines give the council and the residents measurable numbers so we can all objectively monitor and track the borough's financial condition. And I think they're extremely important, and having Jim and Ray at the helm is really, really important. There's no doubt that the pandemic has seriously impacted our municipal revenues. We're not sure when or even if the revenues like commuter parking will bounce back, so we're going to have to make accommodations. And it's important to be conservative fiscally and to continue to prepare for the worst, but it does seem like things are getting back somewhat to normal with the holiday shopping But it will take years for the borough to recover financially, and there are still other serious concerns on the horizon, like the office building tax appeals. And we were very fortunate in 2020. We did have adequate reserves, and we've been able to weather the financial storms caused by the pandemic far better than most other towns. And the best way to get through this storm is with a steady hand on the wheel. And with that, I wish my colleagues smooth sailing, all the best with regards to the budget in the months and years ahead. And I really thank you very, very much for the opportunity to serve this town and to be with you all. Thanks. I'm glad I don't have to talk now. Thank you.
Very well deserved. Thank you for your last report for now.
Yeah, sure.
And now, Public Works and Engineering, Mr. Hoover.
Thank you, Mayor. For the engineering department, to talk about the plaza first. The lower plaza stair resets and plaza paver resets are progressing. 2 lower knee wall sections were set. The east, whatever that means, east stair railings placed, west stair railings are cored, topsoil and seed placed over disturbed east lawn, and over the next 2 weeks, the reset of the main entrance railings will take place with completion of the lower plaza and knee walls. For the Department of Public Works, the yard waste pickup has ended for the year, but DPW will continue to pick up leaves for the next week or so. The department also assisted Chatham Borough with leaf removal by lending them one of Madison's leaf machines after one of theirs failed. They completed the removal of all restaurant barriers throughout town and assisted with other preparations and security for the annual Christmas parade, which took place on November 26th. The sewer division removed and replaced 4 broken manhole frames, 2 on Dogwood Drive and 2 on Oak Court. They assisted with the preparation of the free rabies clinic, which took place at the Public Works Garage on December 4th. Both salt domes have been topped off in anticipation of winter weather. They will begin to pick up trees, Christmas trees, on regular garbage days beginning December 27th and ending January 31st. Residents can also bring their trees to the recycling center on John Avenue on Saturdays from 8 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. beginning January 8th and through February 8th. The Recreation Advisory Committee. Spring sports program registrations are starting to open. All sports continue to use Borough COVID protocol waiver as part of the registration process. All of the nominations for the 2022 Recreation Advisory Committee have been submitted for consideration. For the Environmental Commission, in less than 2 months, more than 500 pounds of shoes and textiles have been recycled at the DPW's new textile recycling bin. I've explained about that before. To donate textiles, look for the green bin at the recycling center on Station Road. It is open Tuesday, Friday, and Saturday mornings. For the Shade Tree Management Board, based on 21 months of experience with the tree protection ordinance, the following changes have been made to the tree permit form. They added a box to verify that the trees requested for removal are owned by the applicant. It instructs the applicant to inform their neighbor if the tree being removed is on the property line, and it clarifies replacement trees required versus recommended. It adds a list of suggested hardwood replacement trees. The recommended tree planting list has been updated and is available on the Shade Tree Management Board webpage. For the Sustainable Madison, we now have a nice round figure of 900 points for 2022 for certification in Sustainable Madison. The 3 actions that helped earn these 50 extra points were make your EV friendly, green development checklist, and non-mandated recycling. It's important to note that yes, we need to have these numbers to get the certification, but that's not the most important part. The most important part of Sustainable Madison is what they do on a regular basis. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. And Community Affairs, Ms. Cohen.
Thank you, Mayor. Saturday, December 18th will be the final Secret Santa giveaway of the holiday season. On December 18th, between 12 and 3, you may be randomly approached by a special Secret Santa and awarded a Madison gift check in the amount of $25, $50, or $100. One gift check for each denomination will be handed out to lucky winners on Saturday. The more you shop, the greater your chances to win. Holiday caroling has been brightening up the downtown Saturdays through the month of December. And we'll also do Thursday, 12/23, which will be an evening holiday sing-along with Selwood Studios at the Museum of Early Trades and Crafts. Emails regarding online renewals for commuter resident, residential tenant, and merchant employee parking permits have been sent to current permit holders. If you need to renew but have not received an email, please email parking@rosenet.org. The Taste of Madison, Monday, March 21st, 2022, at Brooklake Country Club. The committee has begun preparations. And don't forget, if you're still looking for that perfect holiday gift, Madison gift checks can be gotten in any denomination all year round at the Provident Bank. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Utilities, Ms. Ehrlich.
Thank you, Mayor. The Electric Department reports that the LED retrofit kits for the Victorian lampposts in the downtown business district are now on their way. The department plans to install the kits in the spring. They will select targeted areas where they can test the kit's appearance and longevity of the new lanterns. The American Electrical Testing Company completed the first year of a 3-year preventative maintenance, repair, testing, and inspection program for the James Park and Kings Road substations, and the Electric Department is ordering 12 more feeder protection relays as part of the Kings Road substation upgrade project. The Water Department reports that several curb stop valves had to be excavated and repaired for work to be performed on homeowner service valves, and that on Thursday, December 9th, the Water Department standby crew responded to an emergency water leak at 114 Turnpike Road. The homeowner's curb stop had been struck by a motor vehicle. Finally, radio-readable water meters are still being installed regularly. At the last meeting of the Utility Advisory Commission, Tom DeVias reported they installed about 30 of these meters a month. So I'm really glad that we have a steady stream of uptake and that residents are continuing to request new meters at their homes. Anyone interested in having their meter changed to the automated reading system should call the Water Department at 973-966-7330 to schedule an appointment. That's all for you.
Thank you. Any hope, Mr. Landrigan?
Thank you, Mayor. It's annual pet license renewal season. Pet renewal applications have been sent via email and U.S. mail. Renewals must be completed by February 1st. If you've added a dog or a cat to your household in 2021 and haven't yet gotten a pet license, now's the time to apply. To kick off the renewal season, the Health Department conducted its annual rabies clinic on December 4th. Specific thanks to the Department of Public Works who hosted the clinic at the DPW garage. Now on to COVID. Madison reports 42 confirmed cases of COVID-19 since December 1st. This makes the last 2 weeks one of the most active periods since the pandemic began. This once again reinforces the need for continued vaccination efforts. As a reminder, all residents ages 5 and up are eligible for a COVID-19 vaccine. Last week, the FDA and CDC updated their guidance on eligibility for booster doses. At this time, all residents 16 years of age and up can receive a booster dose 6 months after their second dose of either Pfizer or Moderna, and 2 months after their single dose of J&J. Retail pharmacies such as CVS, Walgreens, and Stop & Shop, and healthcare providers such as Atlantic Health have availability for primary series, booster series, and pediatric doses. The Madison Health Department is finalizing plans for 2 COVID-19 clinics, which will take place before the holidays. One will be exclusively for pediatric patients serving children 5 to 11, and one will be an adult clinic for ages 16 and over, offering first, second, and booster doses. And finally, remember, visit rosenet.org for updates on New Jersey's COVID-19 vaccination program, testing, and other pandemic guidance. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Communications and petitions.
Yes, Mayor and Council received an email dated December the 13th from residents at Will Pine Avenue asking the council to table any action regarding the water rates ordinance that was passed.
Thank you. Now we're on to our first of two invitations for discussion. This one is limited to the items on our discussion list or the resolutions, which I'll read in just a second. The discussion items are the Memorial Tree Grove, the Open Space Recreation Historic Preservation Update, the 5-year capital plan. These are also here are the resolutions you may comment on. And again, if you want to comment on anything else, that period will be coming up after we have the hearing for ordinances. And as I saw, to get the right page here. So here are the ordinances. Resolution 305 is authorizing an interlocal service agreement with the Borough of Chatham, providing construction code, plumbing subcode, and fire subcode services. This is a renewal of the current relationship that is working very well for both municipalities. Resolution 306 is awarding contract for rapid pump and meter service for preventive maintenance of sewer pump station equipment. This is in the amount of $5,760, and it is funded through the sewer maintenance account. Resolution 307 is preventive maintenance contract for HVAC equipment to Air Systems of Kenilworth, hourly rate of $115, and this is funded through the Public Works operating budget. Resolution 308 is authorizing the submission of the grant application to the County of Morris Community Development Block Grant for fire and safety improvements to 12 3-bedroom units at 30 Wanaka Way, amount of $100,000. That's being done by the Madison Housing Authority. Resolution 309 is authorizing a grant application also to the Community Development Block Grant Program for the Dodge Field Accessible Playground Improvements and Reconstruction in the amount of $125,000. Resolution 310 is appointing Carolyn Romanelli to part-time position of Madison Arts and Technology Assistant. Resolution 311 is change request order from Cifelli and Sons for $17,200.12 for the 2021 road improvement program. Resolution 312 is authorizing a change order request from Denville Line Painting in the amount of $994.35, bringing the total contract to $30,994.35 for the mill overlay and line striping program. Resolution 313 is accepting a donation of a storage cabinet from Madison resident Chester Lee. Thank you very much, Chester. Resolution 314 is supporting the New Jersey State League Municipality Conference Resolution 218-04, calling for a tax exception for information technology and cybersecurity costs. I was one of the co-sponsors of this league. This is because security things related to cybersecurity technology is out of our control, and it could be a major burden for some municipalities. Resolution 315, resolution correcting and authorizing the 2021 budget transfers. Resolution 316 is authorizing purchase of public service vehicle under Educational Purpose Services Commission, New Jersey ESC. This is for a hybrid pickup truck for Department of Public Works. It's a 2022 Ford F-150 hybrid, funded through Ordinance 24-2021, and it's $42,756.49. And Resolution 317 is a developer's agreement between the Borough of Madison and Madison Movie Development, Lincoln Place. They may comment on any of those resolutions or the three agenda discussions. Anyone wishing to comment on those, please step forward, state your name, your address, and the agenda item you're commenting on. Try to keep your comments to 3 minutes, but we'll give you a 1 minute grace and ask you to stop at 4. Anyone wishing to comment on any of those? Seeing none, we'll close this part of the meeting. Again, we'll be back with a second invitation for discussion. All right, Memorial Tree Grove.
Yeah, so let me kick this off. First of all, my colleague reminded me that I should have included a formal written agenda item in the agenda, and I apologize for not having done that. Hopefully, the presentation will be sufficient. If not, I'll be glad to prepare the formal written agenda item. What I'd like to do is introduce Chris Shaw, who is going to present on behalf of the Friends of the Shade Tree Management about the memorial tree grove for Judy Mullins. Chris?
I don't know how to do this, right? Okay. Hi. I'm going to begin. Some of you know Judy, and some, I'm afraid, have already come into public life without having met her. Judy Mullins came to Madison as the first woman to manage a major market public transit system in the state of Connecticut. And from here, she managed the bus division for New Jersey Transit through 1992, when she and Dennis purchased Poor Herbie's Restaurant and Pub, a much-loved gathering place for in- and out-of-towners. Judy made friends of everyone who came to Poor Herbie's, yet somehow found time to volunteer for what seems like every possible public service: the Madison League of Women Voters, the Madison Planning Board, the Madison Parks Commission, the Madison Chamber of Commerce, the Madison Republican Committee, the Madison Garden Club, and the Board of Directors of the Museum of Early Trades and Crafts. It was Judy's idea to transform the weedy corner of Green Avenue and Kings Road into Madison's signature Rose Garden Park. And Judy, who spent 10 years supervising and administering the huge grant that funded the re-landscaping of the Madison train station. Ever an advocate of green space and canopy trees, it was Judy who masterminded the creation of both the Madison Shade Tree Board and the volunteer group devoted to supplementing the work of that body, my group, the Friends of Madison Shade Trees. Generous even in her passing, Judy asked that in lieu of flowers, donations be made to Friends of Madison Shade Tree. Using those donations as seed funds and adding to them from our own funds, FMST is proposing to plant over several years a memorial grove honoring Judy's many years of advocating for trees, and also representing a new way of planting canopy trees that contributes to sustaining local ecosystems. We have, in the revitalized Drew Forest, a model of how we should be maintaining woodlands in Madison. We would like to locate the grove in this open square at Memorial Park, in part because it is directly across from where Judy lived, and her house, one of the oldest in Madison, has been torn down. It is a public space which, when the grove has been fully planted, will add beauty to the park and to the neighborhood. The proposed grove includes only native trees and shrubs, some canopy and some understory. We want to create an ecosystem that incorporates what we have learned from Doug Talamay and also the Drew Forest, that in order to support insect and wildlife, multi-level native plantings are necessary. We want the grove to be a model of low maintenance. Although Friends of Madison Shade Tree will take care of planting, fencing, and watering in the early years of the grove, we propose that the leaves not be blown away but allowed to fall and remain on the floor of this little woods, supporting insect life cycles and in decaying, nourishing the soil and helping to retain moisture. FMST needs only a water source for which there are already available lines. We propose to do all the necessary and ongoing maintenance. Because of the design, the level of maintenance will be low and get lower as the years pass. The plan was designed by Tom Salaki with these specifications in mind. It has been unanimously approved by the Shade Tree Management Board, the Friends of Madison Shade Trees, and by the Parks Advisory Committee. And now we bring it to you, our mayor and council, in hopes of a supporting resolution. Now you can see, I don't want to read this out loud. If you want to go back to the pictures, I'll just point to this stuff. There's a trunk here, a stump that's going to need removing. And then the existing trees around the perimeter here are all sort of aging and in decline. So we're going to begin by seriously pruning them back and then keep an eye on them. We're going to feed them and see if we can restore them to health. And if they don't respond, they'll have to be removed as well. But the initial planting will begin in the center because we're going to phase this in over several years. So the center tree would go in first, and then you're going to see a plan in a little bit. But we're going to radiate out from that each sort of level of planting that we do, so that the canopy trees and the understory trees will grow and fill in the space and make this a self-sustaining ecosystem. And the reason that we're starting in the center like that is to not only make the planting, but make maintenance much easier. So it'll be the closest trees that we water and mulch and take care of first, and then we'll probably radiate out from that. And eventually we would hope to incorporate plantings from the garden club and so forth, the way Sarah Webb reintroducing ground covers that are native as well. So any signage at any point would have to be approved by you. We're clear that the impetus for this project has been the long-range vision of Judy Mullins. And as it takes shape, it will be life-affirming and beautiful. But both FMST and STMB have long-standing policies against plaques for anybody. So since Judy asked for donations in lieu of flowers, we're using that seed money for the Grove, which is why we've sort of unofficially referred to it as the Mullins Grove. But we don't want to name the Grove that. And we'd like to follow a suggestion that came from Bob, we maybe use this as a memorial grove in the nicest sense, so that, for example, we might plant a tree in honor of the 135th anniversary of the Thursday Morning Club, and make it a place where we can honor volunteers, which is a long-standing and most precious element of life in Madison. So we are working on developing some kind of tags for trees in the manner of the Frelinghuysen Arboretum that might identify individual trees as landmark trees or as newly planted and give information about the species and so forth, or as private donations such as the one that Woody Kirkeslager made for the Summerhill Park. And the tree would be identified that way. And then, of course, there would be one for Judy in the middle. We want to create a sustainable native ecosystem in addition to planting native hardwood canopy trees, hence the unusual scope of this project. If we've learned anything from the heartbreaking statistics collected by the town tree ordinance, it is that planting one tree at a time is woefully, completely inadequate to develop or maintain a healthy urban canopy. And I have, just as supplemental information for you, an article recently published by the New Jersey Conservation Group, and it's about tiny forests and the creation of microforests that help manage groundwater and clean the air and do the things that large forests do, but can be planted to be managed in a very small area, in vacant areas, that really supplement the urban noise pollution, clean air, and groundwater control. So I have these for you, and thank you very much. If there are questions about this plan, I have the expert. I brought, Tom is here to answer all the questions.
And Chris, those go up to the clerk and we'll distribute from, yeah.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Tom. Welcome, Tom.
Thank you. Good to be here. I can walk you briefly through the design and layout and intent, and then any questions we have on it. So the site, as Chris mentioned, was selected partly because Judy's house was across the street, but also because this is a lawn area in one of our parks that is not used by children to play. You know, it's along the street, it has a slope, it's not used as a sports field, there's not, you know, social gatherings in it. So looking at unused lawn space that is void of habitat altogether, you know, understanding that there needs to be a balance. So that was the other half of the selection of this particular location. And in terms of the layout, yes, the idea is it's kind of it's a true landscape architecture project in that it's a blending of science and of art. So Chris did a great job describing how the forest is going to be an ecosystem, not just one tree, but a collection of trees and understory plants that work with one another and work for one another, right? Similar to how volunteers do in town. But you notice there is actually a grid on this, so that people that don't even go to the park and are driving by, there's a selection of tulip poplars, American beech, white oaks. The American beech and tulip poplars in particular, because we don't use those as street trees in town, but they're vital native trees. We don't use them because the beech have very shallow roots and they're kind of difficult to put in medians. And sometimes tulip poplars grow so fast that it's similarly so they can be very difficult to have on tight locations. So this is a really great opportunity to kind of showcase like the superstars of the Northeast shade trees in a location that people that are driving can see them. But then as they mature, it's going to create this amazing canopy up above with the trunks kind of set on a grid. So it's eye-catching. It's not just a forest. You know, it's not just another wooded lot. It's really going to be kind of a piece of art that develops over time, especially as the understory, you know, we have a collection of dogwoods and sassafras kind of begin to grow below. So as this ages and over time, it changes its dynamic, but people can see it. You know, you don't have to be an ecologist to say, oh, something's happening in this forest. You can see it as someone who's never experienced the forest before. And I think that's really important. And so I think, and again, Chris, you know, kind of mentioned what's missing here is like, you know, shrub layer and things like that. But the idea is that this develops and changes over time, and shrubs and ground covers are selected for how the forest is developing. You know, if the trees in the back are growing taller and denser, maybe we'd do some more shade plants there. So like an ecosystem, it's going to have to change and develop over time. And it's a great opportunity to get, you know, volunteer organizations involved in that over the years.
Thank you. Chris, thank you for the presentation. Tom, thank you for your work on this. I think it's an amazing tribute to an amazing woman. And as described, really is going to be a nice little addition. Any other questions or comments? Deb and then Bob?
Just a quick question. Having bought one of the saplings that Drew gave away several years ago and watched it, it's like maybe this high now. Are we putting in slightly more mature trees?
Yes.
So there will be a tree there and then it'll grow?
It's the same size or larger than a typical Madison shade tree that goes in, which is like a 2.5-inch caliper tree.
Okay.
So taller than me, you know, 15 foot, 12 to 15 feet, depending on the species that goes in, yeah. So not saplings, especially for deer reasons. You know, we don't want the little tiny things getting munched.
Yep, thank you. And I love it. It's a great idea.
Bob?
Yeah. I think this is a wonderful idea, and I wish that there could be more of these type of areas around town. Question, once work begins on this, how long will it take to, let's say, plant the initial group of trees? I understand it'll take a while for them to all grow, but how long would it take to get this first planting done?
Chris, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I know Chris has kind of come up with a schedule, but the thinking was kind of like a 3-year planting plan to get the bones in, right? So the first year would be the first cluster of larger hardwoods, the taller ones, and then we'd do an additional planting, and then finally we'd start doing the smaller shrubs and things around that. So that kind of builds that structure and framework for the ecosystem to begin to grow.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Right. Well, we don't have anything on here as formal action, but I think it would be good to have a motion to endorse the project and to thank the Friends of Shade Tree and, more importantly, the Friends of Judy Mullins for this work.
I'll make the motion that we approve it.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Ms. Bailey?
Yes.
Ms. Byrne?
Yes.
Mr. Hoover?
Yes.
Ms. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Ehrlich?
Yes.
Mr. Landrigan?
Yes.
Thank you, and thank you very much. Hey, Jim, you are up. Open space.
I wish they would do more of it around. That's what I was asking.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor. Going to do a brief budget presentation. As discussed, we'll talk just for a few minutes about the budget schedule. We'll talk about the Open Space Trust Fund and the 2022 five-year capital plan. I'm not going to go through the dates that Councilwoman Bailey discussed, but this is the proposed budget hearing. It's in your packet. It'll be published on Rosenet. These are all regularly scheduled council meetings. There's no special council meeting dates. As Councilwoman Bailey said, the most important thing to understand is that we're under state review this year. Sometimes we'll be preparing for the introduction of the budget on March 28th, which is a Monday, and we may not get the comments back from the state until the March 25th. So sometimes that can get a little hectic, but we'll do our best to adhere to this schedule. I'm not going to go into this. This is just a slide that I show all the time. The concept is that we're going to talk about open space and capital now. Each one of those has an individual voted on ordinance for appropriation as opposed to the main budget. We start with open space and capital and kind of go around a couple times till we get to the end of the budget process. There are three entities: the current fund, the electric utility, and the water utility, three separate budgets that are part of the entire budget packet. And there are three capital accounts associated with that: the general capital, the electric utility capital, and the water utility capital. Each budget has its own capital fund. Is it a budget or spending plan? I include this slide all the time, and I like to really consider it more of a spending plan. Once the dollar amounts are set in the budget in March and then finalized in April, that's really it. It's very hard to increase it's very hard to increase the entire budget. We can make budget transfers. We have one this evening where we're taking funds that we have excess in our insurance line and transferring it to the fire department for their overtime. But it's really more of a spending plan, a little bit different than a personal budget where if you got a bonus in the middle of the year or you were a company and had additional revenue, you could change your budget and your spending plan throughout the year. That's not the way it works in the municipal world. So open space, I wanted to, while we still had Councilwoman Bailey here who's championed this, report on the Open Space Trust Fund activity. Just real briefly, should be a familiar looking schedule to you. Every year we present something similar. The inflows are tax levy, field rental fees, funds that get pulled from reserve and put into the income side and then expensed out on the expense side, and then interest, and then all the outflows that happen throughout this year. This should look familiar, the resolutions and ordinances that the council advanced throughout the spending year. And the main thing to see is that we started the year at $297, we're ending the year at $328 in terms of $328,000, kind of ending the year about where we started. In addition to what this is, which is more of like an income statement, here's the income and the expenses. The reserve funds are funds that will flow through the budget and then be placed into a reserve coffee can or a pot on the side. For example, the reserve for reskinning of the turf fields. Last year, the reserve on December 31st was $400,000. This year, it increased by $88,816, which is the exact amount of what you see right here, the amount that was brought in. So the amount is brought in here as a field rental and user fee. It's actually expensed out on this side and placed in the coffee can, if you will. Those funds are reserved for the reskinning of the turf fields at MRC 1 and 2. We also have funds set aside for remediation and Green Acres funds set aside for the paying down of the land portion of the MRC debt. This list of projects was presented to the Open Space Committee. All of the lists of items here have been discussed by council. Some of them were discussed years ago, like a potential turf field at MHS, but this is just a list of what's on the radar screen of what's coming. And obviously, there's a tremendous hope, I think, for the playground at Dodge Field to happen. HDM East Wing restoration. We are obviously hoping to get that done next year. We may or may not need additional funds depending on other funding partners there. And that's just a list for council to be aware of. But you're still going to vote on every one of those items and make that final determination before any money is appropriated. This is kind of like the what's coming down the pipe list. This is the, it's very hard to see, so many numbers on the screen here, but this is the long-term bond payment schedule. On the left-hand side is land, and on the right-hand side is the turf field. You can see, is this the little pointer here? Yeah. You can see the turf field funding ends in 2028. The land portion ends in 2033. It shows our annual principal amounts and our annual interest paid and the remaining principal on each. So right now in 2021, we have $583,000 remaining on the principal for the turf field. We have $1.7 million on the land. And this is our annual payment, and it slowly decreases over time and drops more significantly once the turf field is paid off in 2028. So that's it for the open space portion of it. I don't know if we want to entertain questions on open space now, Mayor, and then shift to capital if that's appropriate. I'm here to answer any questions. Take question, John?
Yes, on slide 10,
Going back, John, hold on.
you have projects recommended by Open Space Committee and approved by council. But then you went on to say that we would review and approve each one of them.
That's
I'm
correct.
A little bit
So
confused.
maybe I'll change that before we post it to say and discussed by council, because I think these are ones where there's been council consensus to in some way, shape, or form advance or keep these under high consideration.
But ordinance so it's been discussed and kind of given a move forward, but an ordinance has not appropriated money yet.
That's correct, sir.
Okay. Maureen?
So on the turf field, we have 7 more years of payment. How long do we think that turf field is going to last? Will it last out that,
I'm going to look at my friend Bob Vogel, and we're hopeful. I think Zach has done a really good job every year getting the maintenance of that turf field. Will it last 7 years? I would say fingers crossed. That would be at the very far end of its useful life. But hopefully it will last that long. We've had a really good experience with it so far.
Deb?
On slide 9, where it talks about the ordinance 35, 2021, MRC handicapped accessible trail, we got a grant for that, reimbursable grant, I assume?
That's correct, yes. That project may come in at closer to $400,000. We have the ordinance funding, $350,000. We're still figuring out, it's really kind of two major sections of that project. It's the remediation that's required in a section of it, and then the work to actually build the trail. And we did get a grant for that trail, thanks to the hard work of council and engineering and Councilwoman Bailey. I think in the end, we'll end up, in terms of out-of-pocket for municipal open space dollars, tax dollars, it will be less than $100,000. So while it's $350 going in the ordinance, you're exactly right. There's going to be reimbursements from various pots that will bring that down, including the grant.
Rachel?
Just as a point of clarification, I'm going to take a page from Mayor Conley's book and remind ourselves and everyone here that we call this open space, but it's in fact the Open Space Recreation and Historic Preservation Trust Fund. And I think that's important because when you look at the diversity of projects on the list here, it's important to remember that this fund flows to a number of important projects that are quite diverse, and we should recall that we have voted to support all different kinds of projects with this trust fund.
Thank you for taking that page from me. Austri?
Jim, could the debt be called and liquidated earlier for the MRC?
So it can, I was looking at this, and we can actually call the debt
in 2023. So if we have excess Green Acres funds that we want to pay down, we could pay down maybe the last 3 years of it. If we have about $500,000, we can pay down the last 3 years. And what that will do is it will reduce our interest costs all along the way. So that is something that's built into the bond ordinance. Couldn't do it until 2023, but that is a viable solution. So we're fortunate that we have some Green Acres funds in reserve that we've received, and we could use those to ultimately prepay that. So that's kind of, I think that's really good news, because that will reduce our expenses, and I always like to pay things off early if I can.
It could certainly help us in the future with the possibility of the Drew Forest preservation.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Any other questions or comments? And just to reinforce, as Ashri mentioned, Drew Forest, as I've often said, that the 3 different ways to look at the open space recreation historic preservation fund is when preserving history, there's often a tight window, because if you don't do it, buildings can be lost, or but when saving land, that is the tightest of all windows. Once the land is sold to a developer, it is forever gone. And the most flexible, but has probably been the area of our highest investment is the actual improvements on our facilities. And so we always have to keep that in mind, and we will, as we move forward with Drew Forest, things may change.
Yes, sir. Well, we'll shift to the draft 5-year capital plan. Council has a copy of the entire plan in their packet. An entire copy of the plan for the public will be available online on rosenet.org, as Councilwoman Bailey explained, on the annual budget process page. But I wanted to just highlight at a very high level the summary areas. We had, with work of Bob Vogel, we were able to kind of curb back some of the numbers. We had hoped at the beginning, or at the end of last year, that we would see revenues coming back for the borough in terms of court fees, parking, and some of our other revenues. We've not seen that happen. And so administration has been working with all the department heads, and especially with the help of Bob Vogel, to manage our general capital consumption and try to keep it in a $4.5 million range. So the blue line in the middle is what will come from the main budget. The lower line will come from the 2 utilities. And there's a lot of big projects in there. There's a fire truck that's coming. You can see how in 2023, 2024, 2025, there's a large uptick in the fire department. You can see the library in 2022. We'll have a separate slide on that. Has a large number in 2022, and it kind of ends up making things not quite even, but we did the best we could. When we do road reconstruction, it makes sense, if we're going to do certain roads, to stay in that area and not say, if we're going to do, let's say, Fen Court, we're going to do Arlena. If we're going to do Windhurst, we're going to do Sinclair. It doesn't make sense to do one road and not do the road right next to it. So with Bob Vogel's help, we're able to pare down road reconstruction and the milling and overlay numbers and some of the other numbers as well. We'll be coming back to council in the beginning of the year with ordinances to fund those. At this point, I feel relatively comfortable that we can fund the $4.6 million. I will say I'll know more in early January. So when it comes to actually advancing those ordinances, I'll be able to say that this plan here is something that I believe we'll be able to fund. So I do want to point out that, as I said before, last year we had $7.6 million in capital items. This year we're down to $6.4 million. This is in terms of the capital items that are listed on the 5-year capital plan that are going to be predominantly funded by the Borough of Madison. However, keep in mind that when we have some grants, we're going to talk about the library in a minute, or when we talk about the radio program that we're going to fund, there's $600,000 in here for the radio program, but the radio program's 2.1 million. The other 1.5 million will come from the ARP funds. So even though it looks like we're kind of reducing our capital spend this year, we have other non-municipally funded projects or projects that are going to be much more funded by outside sources that will help us have a very robust program in 2022. So this is the road program. I don't think we need to go into details, but if you have questions, Bob Vogel's here. This is road reconstruction, and this is milling and overlay. I didn't do all 5 years because it just is a huge schedule. So I just cut it down to the 2 years so you can see what we did. And then I do want to talk for a minute about the library. When I heard about the grant, I was excited. When I heard about the amount of money that was needed from us, I was less excited. But then when I talked to Tom Bittner and understood how large the project was, I'm excited again. So it's a 2 at the bottom of the schedule here. You can see it's a $2.9 million project. The state is going to give $914,000. The borough is going to give $757,000, and the library is going to fund actually the largest amount. They have capital reserves, the Madison Public Library Endowment, and the Friends of the Madison Public Library. So they're really stepping up. The $914,000 that we got from a state grant, we submitted $1.8 million. Even though the project was $2.8 million, we couldn't submit everything. They wouldn't accept certain items that the library wanted to and still needed to have done, for example, the roof. So those items had to be outside the grant. They submitted a grant for $1.8 million. Fabulous that they were that they received it at 50% funding. So the state's coming in at $914,000, and in theory, the town will be paid the $914,000, but it'll be split between the borough and the library, and then we'll add on the other items like the roof repair and what have you. So I wanted to just kind of point out that while this is a large number in the grand scheme of our total budget here of $4.5 million, there's very little that's going to be spent in the library in the out years in 2023 to 2026. And I think this is an important project that they need to advance. Tom Bintinger is here if you have questions now, or if you want to, he'll be available during the budget process time, I'm sure, when Lynn Favreau talks from a department standpoint. So I think that's kind of the most important items that I wanted to bring to your attention in the 5-year capital plan. As I'm just going to reiterate, all these items are the plan. You have to vote on every ordinance, and we'll vote on every ordinance with an introduction and a hearing before any spending can happen.
So to point out, the library project certainly is a major project and a needed one. We are 50 years into the life of that building, and built in a far different time when they used different things to insulate and so on. And we're providing 25 cents on the dollar, which is certainly something we love to see, in the grant world. And before you get in trouble with the people on St. Clair Terrace, St. Clair would partner with Winding Way, but not Winehurst.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Thank you, sir. Did I say, was it Winehurst? Thank you, sir.
Other comments or questions? Bob?
Yeah, I think the library project is wonderful because I know that library does more than just lend out books. It provides a great service to the town. One question I did have, will this project finally take care of the asbestos issue in that building? Because I know you guys have been managing it as best you could over the years, piecemeal. And I see the head shaking yes. That's great.
Tom and Dave are shaking their head yes for anybody watching at home.
Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Deb?
So
And then
I
Osprey.
always have my list of questions. On slide 16, and Bob, these may be for you, the Cook Avenue parking under road reconstruction, I assume that's including the redoing of it? So with the realignment of parking and the one entrance in and the one entrance out?
Yes, it's a complete reconstruction of the parking lot as proposed. The thing that's not included in the road budget is the electrical rewiring and the utility work. That was done under the electrical budget.
Right.
For the capital program. So you'll see that line item separately for Cook Avenue.
And then the other one for you, further down on that slide where it's Green Village Road, Central Avenue, Park Avenue, and Lawanica, I thought those were all county roads that we can't touch, but they're on the list?
The SW indicates the sidewalks, which are outside the paved road surface. So our problems are more related to outside the road surface and the pedestrian, accommodations, which really need some help.
And we keep fighting the battle with the county that should be complete streets. They should be doing,
Basket.
especially in the suburban areas, sidewalks, but we're not winning that battle yet.
Never stop asking.
Yeah.
And some of these, I guess, come from the draft you gave us. Should I go ahead and ask those now anyway?
Sure.
All right. So the trails resurfacing was starting in 2022, but there's no money allocated for 2022?
You want to talk about this, Bob? This is this line here. Trails resurfacing, that's different than the MRC.
We've done some brand-new trails, and particularly in Summerhill Park, we finished up, and within the budgets for those projects, we actually resurfaced them once already, and so the idea was to push the 2022 out a year and wait for further maintenance, particularly since MRC is also going to be initially surfaced, hopefully in the spring.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And then two more, and then I think I'm done. On page 6 of the capital plan, the draft plan, the price for the east wing restoration seems very low. Is
Yes.
there more to that story?
Absolutely, lots more. We've already appropriated a significant amount of money in general capital last year for the East Wing. We're hopeful to have a funding partner that will utilize the first floor space, and we're hopeful to get funding from the Hartley Dodge trustees, and we'll probably know more and bring that information to council in January. As such, we felt like we didn't need to budget too much more for the East Wing.
And then the access ramp, it's on page 10, ramp to 24, that's for the fire department off of Lorraine.
That's correct. It's actually off of Ridgedale. It's going to be over by the MRC. It is a ramp that Lou DeRosa has been asking for. We're working with Florham Park and other stakeholders to try to get that ramp in. Right now, our fire department does have a certain amount of 24 that we have to maintain and deal with when there are accidents on it. And to get to that section, they've either got to go all the way to Chatham or all the way to Columbia Turnpike. So this would be a limited, almost like a dirt/gravel road where the truck could go down, locked gate, be able to access and get to an accident site quicker by going Ridgedale Avenue or Central Avenue. They go Central Avenue to the MRC and access 24 from there.
And you briefly mentioned the ARP. Do we have guidelines that, know what we're doing with it and how it fits into the budget? I know we're using it for the radio system, or that's the plan.
Correct, yes. So the American Rescue Plan funds, the federal government has propagated interim final rules, which doesn't really make sense to me because they're not final. So they're interim and they're final. We're waiting for final rules. We really are hoping that they'll be out in January or early February so we can then take the next steps to appropriate those funds for the radio program. We would be doing it through the budget process.
Great, thank you. I'm done.
Okay, Austri?
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Obviously am not going to be voting on the budget in 2022, but I do have, I guess, a feeling about the bump outs on Green Avenue. It's a $250,000 project. I don't think we should have bump outs like we have on Prospect, because I think that really is negative for bikers, and that there are bump outs that are painted differently than the regular pavement, so it shows that, there's something there, but it's flat, and a bicycle can go over it safely. So I would recommend considering that, and even just pulling it. I don't understand why we would do it, but anyway. Number two, we do milling and overlay after we reconstruct, right? I mean, we wouldn't mill and overlay before you're going to do a reconstruction of a road.
Actually, mill and overlay is a subset of a reconstruction project, Austri, and oftentimes we break it into separate contracts only because there are county co-ops just for mill and overlay, and they're very affordable, and so we like to do those as separate projects.
So every road reconstruction includes mill and overlay, but not every mill and overlay includes reconstruction.
I understand, yeah, I understand all that.
Okay.
So what I'm saying is, it looks like you've got Old Greenhouse Lane for mill and overlay before it gets reconstructed the following year.
Oh, is it on both lists?
Yeah, it's.
Oh, it shouldn't be on both lists.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to say. Hello.
That shouldn't be. Thank you very much. We'll
welcome.
correct that for January.
Okay.
Any other, yep, Rachel.
We have a section here under, I guess it's its own standalone stormwater management compliance. And with the name compliance, it makes me wonder if these improvements are to bring us into compliance with the New Jersey State best practices for stormwater management. I see we're investing $50,000 to $100,000 over the next couple of years each year. And I'm wondering if you can tell us a little bit about the compliance requirements and what we'll be doing to meet them. Oh, this is on page 4 of the long form budget.
Terrific. Thank you.
And if my extrapolation that this is for compliance with the state requirements is wrong, you can just tell me that. You don't.
I'm looking for the word compliance on the list, but I don't see it. All these stormwater projects.
Actually, I can. Well, I'll just show you what I'm looking
So, yes, under the second section, you have stormwater management compliance list, stream stabilization, miscellaneous inlets, outflow riprap. All that has to do with is the New Jersey Municipal Stormwater Management Permitting Program, which it's gone through 2 phases in town. We've been permittees under that program for a decade or more. And the phase 2 part of that program, it gets very detailed about what they want to see the municipalities do to their stormwater infrastructure. And so a lot of that basin retrofitting and those types of improvements are in order to comply with our current permit with the state of New Jersey for the municipal stormwater management program. And again, what it is that it's very much like sanitary sewer compliance, CSO compliance. They all have, every division of the state has their own permit process now, and so the stormwater is also part of a permit process which we have to comply with. And so leaving those items unaddressed is a recipe for getting the state's attention that you don't want. Yeah. Okay?
Just for presentation purposes, before this gets posted online, is to Deb's point, let's get rid of SW and put sidewalks, because most people will be looking at that saying, so why are we just doing the southwest corner? Let's.
You got it, Mayor.
Thank you. Anything else? Anything more? Bob?
My question kind of piggybacks a little bit off of what Astrid mentioned before about the bump outs. My experience with them is that they really don't do a whole lot to slow down traffic, but you still have your lane and cars are going to speed. I notice a lot of municipalities do put like a bump in the middle of the road, and that could go from bike lane to bike lane so the bicycles could still get by. And these municipalities are in areas where they get snow. I noticed a while back, I remember somebody saying it makes it harder to plow the roads. But I would think if you really want to slow down traffic, maybe the bump,
We've been staying away from speed bumps per se. I think one of the other things that bump outs do, whether it's appropriate or not for Green Avenue is a good discussion, but they reduce the time that a pedestrian is in the pavement on the street by shortening, and Green Avenue is wider than it really needs to be, and Hillside is one of our worst intersections in town, so that's where the thought was, again, whether it's appropriate or not. But it gives the stop traffic a better sight view because they're further out, and greatly reduces the time that a pedestrian is crossing the street. In addition to having some level of traffic calming. One of the things that did come out, which was very interesting, was the before and after the road reconstruction of Prospect Street. Typically, once you have new pavement, average speed goes up. Prospect, it did not. So.
That's some good news. I've just,
Yep.
okay.
Any other questions or comments? All right. Thank you very much. Budget season is hereby kicked off. We are now on to ordinance for hearing. Will the clerk please read the statement?
Ordinances scheduled for hearing were introduced by title and passed on a first reading at the regular meeting of the council held on November the 22nd, 2001. All were posted and filed according to law, and copies were made available to the general public requesting same.
I call ordinances for second reading and ask the clerk to read said ordinance by title. Ordinance 46-2021.
Ordinance of the Borough of Madison amending Chapter 190 of the Madison Borough Code entitled Water to authorize the revision of the Borough of Madison's water rates and service fees.
I open the hearing on ordinance 46. Anyone wishing to comment on this ordinance, please step forward with the same rules as before. State your name, street, and try to keep your comments to three minutes, but we will give you a 1 minute grace. This is on the water ordinance.
Hello, everybody.
Welcome, Tom.
Tom Harlan Putis, 27 Pomeroy Road. I just put Tom H for now. I'll spell the rest of it later. So, I wanted to comment on this, and I know that we have the best intentions to maintain our utility and to keep some decent revenues coming into the borough, but it's kind of another tax in a way because it's our water, and this is our water utility, and we're maintaining it in a good way. We actually, about 10 years ago, I think we raised the rates, and the purpose of that was to start changing the meters around the borough. And the presentation that was made at that time was that when we did that, and there was a time period that was presented, then it would sunset, and the rates would probably return to where they were before. I heard the example, or I read the example, Mayor, that other towns are charging more for water, so, we're in a good place, but I don't really care. I don't really want to be like other towns, whether we're higher or lower. We need to do it if there's a real purpose for it. So, you know that there's neighbors in the borough who are already struggling a little bit, and there's probably a point where we have to be sensitive to that too. And I don't want to diminish what we're trying to accomplish by keeping the water utility vibrant and offering a good service to the borough. I think we could probably do that anyway without raising the rates. And if the example is that we should do it just because other towns are higher, I really think that's a poor way to lead raising costs to the residents. So it's something that everybody should consider in the community, and you guys too. And a lot of people are a little apathetic to it until it happens, and then they're like, oh wow, why am I paying another $100 a quarter for water? And then they move on, but it is a tax in a way. I understand there's trying to gain some more revenue. And when I'll come back later and ask some questions about some of the revenue changes. All right?
Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor. Oh, this was my pen, but you could borrow it.
Sure.
We couldn't afford a pen, I guess. Sorry.
Well, hi, Claire Whitcomb, 12 Fairwood Road. I want to also talk about the water ordinance, and I disagree. I do not consider this a tax because unlike taxes, you can totally affect
your water bill. There's so many ways to conserve water. Water usage for many Madison residents doubles in the summer because they irrigate their lawns, which is basically an unnecessary and unenvironmental activity. And I also want to emphasize that New Jersey is launched, they've stopped the home energy audit program, and their new program is through PSE&G, and there's free 1-hour home audits that include free low-flow fixtures, and it tells you not just how to reduce your electric and your heating, but it also addresses water conservation. There's so many ways, if you are concerned about your water bill, that you can reduce your water bill. And the connecting rates for our the price of our natural resources, I mean, paying fair prices for the diminishing natural resources is a fundamental way to promote conservation, and our aquifer is not unlimited. We're paving over more areas of Madison inadvertently in many cases, but it's important to safeguard our resources, and the water bill increase makes total sense to me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to comment on this ordinance? Seeing none, I close the hearing.
Mayor, I move ordinance 46-2021.
Second.
In council discussion, just a quick question, because I think we presented this before and putting you on the spot, Jim, as I look at you. For the average or non-irrigation basic homeowner, what was the annual equivalent of this increase?
About $250 a year, Mayor, was what we use as an average customer. That's non-irrigation, as we pointed out. There are some customers that are less, and there are some customers that are more, and there's some customers that are significantly more over the summer because of their irrigation.
So the $250 is their total bill for the year?
Correct, yes.
So about $8 a quarter for on a 10%.
Yes. And I would just point out that over the 10 years, pension costs have gone up 50%, health insurance has gone up 50% that we pay to the employees that are in this division. So it's just costs are going up. Yeah. And so it's not that we're the lowest and we're increasing them because we're the lowest and because we can. It's because we want to operate a safe, fully functioning water utility. We need to have the dollars to be able to invest in the capital program so we can continue to do the significant capital investment that we want to do in the next 5 to 10 years and beyond.
Deb?
Another question for you. Part of this is the goal is the water wells need to be maintained, repaired, potentially replaced, and all of that is that the capital projects you're talking about?
Correct, yes. So water wells get refurbished, the equipment gets repaired and replaced, the actual well shaft gets repaired and replaced, and as we reported earlier, 50 years ago, we had a well down by DPW and it was called a wet well. Water bubbled up out of the ground like, I know I date myself when I say Jed Clampett from the Beverly Hillbillies, but it looks like most people here might know that image. It came bubbling out of the ground like crude, black old Texas tea. And it went into a container and then it was pumped up the hill to the tanks. We now have to go 50 feet down to get to the water in the well shaft itself. So there has been a significant impact to the aquifer.
Other comments? Just to Claire's point, I think it would be very helpful for us to have a good communication program to our residents to show how they can save water. I used this example before, but when I had a rental apartment and the second floor tenant didn't tell me their toilet was running, and as soon as I got that quarterly bill, it was amazing how much a single running toilet can make a difference on a bill. And little things about low flow and so on, we can save our very valuable resource and save money for our residents. Rachel?
I have an example like that as well. We just installed a new front lawn at our house. Some folks in the audience might be pleased to know that it's all native perennials and trees. Very exciting. But we did install a small irrigation system because we want those trees and plants to thrive in the first couple of years. We selected an irrigation controller that connects to our Wi-Fi. It checks the weather, and if it's going to rain tomorrow, it doesn't water the lawn. So this is not a costly device, and if people want to save money on watering their lawns, then there's inexpensive technology that can preemptively schedule or cancel your lawn watering based on the weather. So, oh, and by the way, if it doesn't rain, it waters it. So, you know, it's a smart sensor, and I think more people should know about these kinds of devices. I also did a little digging. I went back and I read the report of the Strategic Planning Initiatives Committee on Utilities, and did a really deep dive analyzing the electric and utility reliability and rates. And they found that, this is back in 2015, and the committee found that for the electric utility, compared to other suppliers, that our town's rates and reliability was consistent with the mission of the utility, whereas comparing our water utility with no history of significant service interruptions, but with rates that are substantially below market, the combination of high reliability and very low rates was not consistent with the mission of the utility. And so I just want to add that changing our rates to match the high level of service and reliability of our water utility is entirely consistent with the findings of the Strategic Plan Initiative to set rates that are comparable with municipally owned utilities. So I think we're on the right track here, and this adjustment to the rates is overdue, and I'm glad we're moving forward with this.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, roll call vote, please.
Ms. Bailey?
Yes.
Ms. Byrne?
Yes.
Mr. Hoover?
Yes.
Ms. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Ehrlich?
Yes.
Mr. Landrigan?
Yes.
I declare ordinance 46-2021 adopted and finally passed, and ask the clerk to publish notice thereof in the newspaper and file the ordinance in accordance with the law. Ordinance 47-2021.
Ordinance of the Borough of Madison amending Chapter 94 of the Madison Borough Code entitled Electric Utility to establish an electric connection fee schedule.
Mayor, I move ordinance.
Hold on a second.
Oh, sorry, there's a
Yep.
hearing.
I got distracted there and didn't open the hearing. I open the hearing for ordinance 47-2021. Anyone wishing to comment on this ordinance, please step forward. Seeing none, I close the hearing.
Mayor, I move ordinance 47-2021. Second.
Council discussion, again, this is only for new connections, so this does not affect any existing accounts. Any further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Ms. Bailey?
Yes.
Ms. Byrne?
Yes.
Mr. Hoover?
Yes.
Ms. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Ehrlich?
Yes.
Mr. Landrigan?
Yes.
I declare ordinance 47-2021 adopted and finally passed, and ask the clerk to publish notice thereof in the newspaper and file the ordinance in accordance with the law. Ordinance 48-2021.
Ordinance of the Borough of Madison appropriating $100,000 from the Electric Capital Improvement Fund for substation feeder protection relays, gauges, and related material.
Open the hearing on ordinance 48-2021. Anyone wishing to comment, please step forward. Seeing none, I close the hearing.
Mayor, I move ordinance 48-2021. Second.
Any council discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Bailey?
Yes.
Ms. Byrne?
Yes.
Mr. Hoover?
Yes.
Ms. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Ehrlich?
Yes.
Mr. Landrigan?
Yes.
I declare ordinance 48-2021 adopted and finally passed, and ask the clerk to publish notice thereof in the newspaper and file the ordinance in accordance with the law. Now we're on to our second of two invitations for discussion. This is when you may comment on any topic. Again, same rules apply. State your name and address, and try to keep your comments to 3 minutes, but we'll give you a 1-minute grace.
Clara Whitcomb, 12 Fairwood. I have something that I would like to hand out to the council,
Come up to the clerk here. This is,
it's pertinent to the next speaker, so you guys all get this. Helpful. First of all, I want to really extend huge thanks to Astrid Bailey for her amazing leadership in town. I don't have all the specifics, but she has such a deep knowledge. She's the only person you can have in a conversation and mentions something about the open space plan, and she has it on her desk, and she turns to page 21, and she discusses it in detail with Kathy Cacavalli, who knows the whole thing inside and out. She just is a huge asset, and many of the things that you've seen up here on the budget, the open space, the smartness of the strategic planning, they're all due to the quiet diligence of somebody sitting right there. I'm so pleased with the Friends of the Madison Shade Tree and the grove that's being planned, and I'm also really gratified what all of us have been learning by digging deep into a forest ecosystem and understanding the connections between trees and plants. I'm really pleased that you're getting a hybrid car without any prompting from Peter Fried or anybody else. I have a question on the turf field that's coming up for reskinning. I'd like to raise the issue of having better materials, and I know that we've talked about this, and Bob, I need to meet with you about this. But I would hope that the budget would reflect not your basic toxic materials and some higher, so we can plan for some. I'm not really up on what you need to have on a turf field, but like there's cork and there's other things that are not petroleum-based, that are not hazardous to the health of children. And so I don't exactly know what the maintenance has been involved in the turf fields, but at some point I'd like to know a little bit more about that. I have a question on the library roof. Could it support solar in its rejiggering? Because that's an obvious flat modern roof that would not be, the slate roof here is not a good candidate. And those are my things. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Claire. Just a couple of quick, related to the turf field. Right now, we're just in the reserve mode, but we certainly will look at, when the time comes, look at the options. Someone can review the maintenance process with that, but it's a constant raking process, and I think replacing some of the infill. We have looked at all the roofs of our public buildings for potential solar, so we'll always keep it in mind. I believe the library was not a great candidate because of the lovely trees that surround that beautiful building. But, new roof is always new flat roof is a great place to put solar. Anyone else wishing to comment, please step forward. Here we go. And I did have a reach out that, typically during comment period, we do not have multiple people come up at one time because it is a one-on-one thing. This is a holiday season, so we are making an exception because this is a different sort of comment, so.
Thank you. Is it okay if we take our masks?
Yes, dear.
Thank you. Judy Kroll, 27 Laurel Way.
Mary Jane Lunt, 10 Highview Terrace. Lydia Chambers, 87 Millbrook, New Vernon.
We have a little entertainment. You guys have been working super hard tonight, so hopefully this will give you a little comic relief. We wanted to have a group of Girl Scouts come and sing, but they couldn't because of the lateness of the hour, so you're stuck with us. So you're welcome to join us if you're in the audience, or if you would like to join us. We're going to do a little quick song, and it does move at a pretty fast clip, so here we go.
Ask me.
Let's try this again.
We need you.
You stop the clock. Sorry.
It's okay.
Don't normally do that time.
On the first day of Christmas, the Jew was gave to me a red fox by a pine tree. On the second day of Christmas, the Jew was gave to me two good hawks and a red fox by a pine tree. On the third day of Christmas, the Jew was gave to me 3 butterflies, 2 Cooper's hawks, and a red fox by a pine tree. On the 4th day of Christmas, the Druids gave to me 4 hollow turds, 3 butterflies, 2 Cooper's hawks, and a red fox by a pine tree. On the 5th day of Christmas, the Druids gave to me 5 golden rod, 4 calling toads, 3 butterflies, 2 Cooper's hawks, and a red fox by a pine tree. On the 6th day of Christmas, the Druids gave to me 6 ducks a-laying, 5 golden rod, 4 calling toads, 3 butterflies, 2 Cooper's hawks, and a red fox by a pine tree. On the 7th day of Christmas, the Druids gave to me 7 turtles swimming, 6 ducks a-laying, 5 golden rod, 4 calling toads, 3 butterflies, 2 Cooper's hawks, and a red fox by a pine tree. On the 8th day of Christmas, the Druids gave to me 8 bees a-buzzing, 7 turtles swimming, 6 ducks a-laying, 5 golden rod, 4 calling toads, 3 butterflies, 2 Cooper's hawks, and a red fox by a pine tree. On the 9th day of Christmas, the Druids gave to me 9 birds eating, 8 bees a-buzzing, 7 turtles swimming, 6 ducks a-laying, 5 golden rod, 4 calling toads, 3 butterflies, 2 Cooper's hawks, and a red fox by a pine tree. On the 10th day of Christmas, the Druids gave to me 10 frogs a-leaping, 9 birds eating, 8 bees a-buzzing, 10 turtles swimming, 6 ducks a-laying, 5 golden rod, 4 calling birds, 3 butterflies, 2 Cooper's hawks, and a red fox by a pine tree. On the 11th day of Christmas, my Druids gave to me 11 birds unfurling, 10 frogs a-leaping, 9 birds eating, 8 buzzing, 7 turtles swimming, 6 ducks a-laying, 5 golden rod, 4 calling toads, 3 butterflies, 2 Cooper's hawks, and a red fox by a pine tree. On the 12th day of Christmas, the Druids gave to me 12 warblers warbling, 11 ferns unfurling, 10 frogs a-leaping, 9 birds leaping, 8 buzzing, 7 turtles swimming, 6 ducks a-laying, 5 golden rod, 4 calling toads, 3 butterflies, 2 Cooper's hawks, and a red fox by a pine tree.
In less than 4 minutes, so well done.
Thank you.
And thank you for bringing some cheer to our meeting and, delivering a great message in a fun way. Anyone else wishing to be heard, you do not have to sing your comments. In fact, we probably would appreciate that you don't, but please step forward if any others that have would like to. Seeing none, I close this part of the meeting, and we move on to there are no introduction of ordinances because we're at the last meeting of the year, so consent agenda resolutions. Will the clerk please read the statement?
Consent agenda resolutions will be enacted with a single motion. Any resolution requiring expenditure is supported by a certification of availability of funds. Any resolution requiring discussion will be removed from the consent agenda. All resolutions will be reflected in full in the minutes.
Mayor, I move Resolution 305-2021 through Resolution 2021.
Second.
Any council discussion or any that need to be pulled? Roll call vote, please.
Ms. Bailey?
Yes.
Ms. Byrne?
Yes.
Mr. Hoover?
Yes.
Ms. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Ehrlich?
Yes.
Mr. Landrigan?
Yes.
There is no unfinished business. Approval of vouchers. Will the clerk please read the voucher totals?
For the current fund, $482,410.65. For the general capital fund, $45,015.48. Electric operating fund, $555,875.75. For The Electric Capital Fund, $2,880. The Water Operating Fund, $23,182.17. And the Trust, $288,391.26. The total is $1,397,755.31.
Mayor, I move approval of the vouchers.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Ms. Haley?
Yes.
Ms. Byrne?
Yes.
Mr. Hoover?
Yes.
Ms. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Ehrlich?
Yes.
Mr. Landrigan?
Yes.
And under new business, I just received a message from Casey Kasem, but the 12 Days of the Drew Woods has just shot up to #1 on the top 40, so amazing. Well, very well done, but seriously, I just want to wish everyone a very happy holiday season and a healthy new year, and we will see you back here on January 3rd at 7 o'clock. Austri, would you like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting?
This is the first time I've ever done this, you know. I never, ever had the opportunity to do this. I would like to make a motion to adjourn, and thank you all. Have a good holiday.
Okay.